So, greetings to all of you. This is teacher Dr. Mgomba Ronald, and I'm back again to talk about life processes. There are a number of characteristics of living things that define organisms which are termed as living things, and they are the ones we are going to go ahead and talk about in this chapter. When those characteristics are observed in an organism, then an organism qualifies to be a living thing. So the first characteristic or property of living things is reproduction. All organisms reproduce and produce fertile offsprings. So that's what we are talking about first. All living organisms reproduce. We see reproduction between making new organisms of the same species. It can be sexual reproduction or asexual reproduction. A lion does not qualify to be in the same species with a leopard because they do not belong to the same species and they cannot reproduce and produce a fertile offspring. Our second characteristic of living things is respiration. All living things exchange gases with their environment, and we can see that in human beings. We usually take in a dash and get rid of dash. I believe all of you are now guessing. What do we usually take in? We usually take in oxygen, and then we get rid of the gas known as carbon dioxide. By so doing, we are carrying out respiration as a characteristic of living things. Plants, what do the plants do? We know that plants take in a certain gas and then give out a certain gas. So plants take in carbon dioxide and they give out oxygen. That is our second property of living things. The third property of living things is regulation. Regulation is our next property of living things. Dash and dash to the environment. Good. Living organisms are able to sense what is in their environment, and after sensing, what happens thereafter? Yes, they respond. So in other books, you find it being called irritability or sensitivity. Organisms are able to sense what is in their environment and then respond to their environment thereafter. We can see like this plant that is growing towards the source of light. We have all heard about that, and that is sensitivity. Organism is responding to the environment. Even when you step on a nail and it pricks you, you will be able to jump up, and that is sensitivity. You can see this guy who is responding to very loud music. We use our brain, the nervous system, and the endocrine system control this process. That takes us to our next property of living things, and that is excretion. Excretion is the removal of dash from an organism. Usually we see removal of metabolic waste products from an organism. That is what we usually call respiration. Then you can see this picture. Pooping is not excretion. That's a question. What is it? Pooping is simply loss of undigested food. But peeing is. Why? Because it involves getting rid of waste products of metabolism. So is exhaling. Exhaling, we are getting rid of gases like carbon dioxide. And even when we sweat, we also get rid of the sweat that is within our bodies. We are getting rid of waste products of metabolism as a characteristic of living things. The next property of living things or characteristic of living things is called growth. All living things are able to grow, increasing in dash of cells of an organism. Who can give us the correct answer for that? I can see all of you responding and saying size or number of the cells of an organism. You can see growth taking place. You can see that image that is on your screen. You can see this baby was once in the uterus, in the mother's womb. He was produced, and this guy he has already put on weight. You can see him measuring himself. That is growth. So it involves increase in size and increase in number of organism. You can see this tree. It was once a seedling, but now it is a very big tree. That takes us to our next property of living things, and that is nutrition. Nutrition. How organisms are able to obtain energy from the environment. It usually includes ingestion of food, that is to say, swallowing of food. Like when you eat food, that is ingestion. Like this guy here is eating a burger, that is ingestion. That takes us to digestion, and that digestion talks about breaking down food materials into other smaller forms that can easily be digested. Then finally, we see digestion of food materials. So that is all about nutrition. So our next property of living things, characteristic of living thing, is transport. We usually see movement of essential materials or elements and waste products of metabolism, how they move from one location to the next location. You can see food moving from the mouth all the way to where you pass it out from. Then you can also see movement of blood through the blood vessels. This is characteristic of living things. Is this why you should pay attention in school? That's a question. You can see this guy here is pushing a wheelbarrow. I would also task you to go ahead and look out for other characteristics of living things. Yes, there are some characteristics that I've not talked about here, and I want you to go ahead and find them out. And then when we meet again, we shall go ahead and talk about them more in details. Have a wonderful time. This remains Teacher Dr. Mugomba Ronald. I've been talking about the characteristics of living things or life processes. We started with the simplest life processes and we have ended with transport. Have a good time. Thank you so much for watching. Share, like, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you.